I'm John Hurd. I'm track manager at Derby. I'm also a member of the Transparency Development Group. And we've got a workload system in at Derby. And I want to talk through what we did and why we looked at academic workload planning a number of years back, the overview of the system we've currently got, what issues and problems we've looked at and encountered, how the system grew in complexity, and that will become clear when I get to that section, how that can make what set out to be a planning tool in some areas end up being a recording tool. And I just want to briefly talk through our academic sign-off and our data lockdown processes. So why did we change from TAS? The TAS system was unpopular with academics, and it was difficult to manage from the Derby perspective. We collected in percentage terms by about a dozen key activities which fitted with the track requirements. But the information was only used for track, wasn't seen as useful outside of that, and therefore it became a bit of a box ticking exercise and was quite resource intensive. We didn't have a system that enabled us to collect by research sponsor type, and so as that was a track requirement, it came in 2 years ago I think, we needed to do something to resolve that, as our TAS system wasn't going to be compliant without a change. We discussed this, and there was a proposed academic workload planning project had started, the development had started, and we felt that we could use that, and as a positive to sell that, we could say if we can get this successfully introduced, we can drop TAS, which was a positive to sell. So why did we change to academic workload planning? The executive had already started a process at looking at a standardised approach to work practices. There was quite a lot of discrepancy across the 4 faculties in terms of allowances, and that was already causing some concern. So a review of the academic contract was already started by our HR team. What came out of that was we wanted to move to a standardised workload planning so that we could reflect the standard allowances and the standard contracts within one system. And I guess in common with most universities at that time, most faculties, and indeed at subject area level, were running their own spreadsheets, access databases, back-off fag packets type approach. We had the full mixture, and we also wanted, it's been mentioned in the presentation, staff resource cost is such a major impact on the finances of the university. We wanted a better way of informing where our staff time and therefore cost was being used, and again this was seen as a way of achieving that. So where are we in Derby? We've got a system that's been live for 4th year, will be 13-14. It not only informs the track, we actually extract information from it to code our academic staff to our nominal ledger. So we have an extract that allows the academic workload plan to be reflected in where time is coded within the nominal. Obviously it also delivers the track information on top of that. And some areas use it as a planning tool. However, by the basis that it says some at the start of that, there are some areas that don't. Others still use their fag packets, still use the Excel, and then transfer that into the system. And so for them, it's really no more than a standardised recording tool. And that's a bit of a failure in terms of the introduction. The actual software for it has been built and developed in-house and lives within our PeopleSoft is the PS there, student software. So it's built into our student software package. The system itself has several tabs that identify activity type. Classroom teaching, non-classroom teaching, and then you'll start to see some track terminology, publicly funded and non-publicly funded, PGR, research, scholarly activity, etc. And the reason for breaking it down in that way was to enhance or ease the use of it from an academic's point of view, i.e. some of them would only need to bother with one or two of those tabs. So it was to try and, in a way that you have done better, I think, it was try and get people to only work with what they needed. So we did it by breaking the system down. Unlike we have the managers, the subject area managers, control the input data for their staff. They actually enter it for the staff that they control. And they validate it with each individual as part of the DPR process. So that's the development performance review, what I used to call appraisal processes. And that's, so the individuals can view their own data, but they don't enter it. That's done by the subject area managers. I guess in a similar way we have our faculty admin who sets up new academics, links them to the appropriate manager, ensures all the modules, etc. are available. So they do a lot of the admin and the background tasks. And then when we come to the final outputs, i.e. when the information is used, both for nominal recording and then for track, we make the faculty deans responsible for signing off the data in a summarised form, obviously. But where were the benefits we saw? Well, a consistent approach, a bit like the UE benefit. We wanted a consistent approach. We wanted to try and move away from local practice, which was prevalent. We wanted to build in our standard allowances in the way that I guess you have done the bundles, so we wanted, and our system has quite a lot of automated allowances built in as well. I have to say the UE one does it better, but we've got that, but it's more complicated. I mentioned it's built into the university student system. And what we did was, again, we took a different approach to UE in as much that we tried to integrate it with existing data sets. So, for example, if a manager wants to enter a module code, it's got to be a live module code that's sitting in our student system, in our basic modules data table. So we have a control in as much that we have a certain amount of integration, so they can't enter invalid module codes. And there are pluses and minuses to that more later. We also wanted it to be able to be linked across other systems, timetabling, and we do have a link to the nominal as well for when we convert to our nominal coding. And obviously, we did replace TAS. We haven't done TAS since the system was introduced. Who was involved? It was sponsored at a senior level, exec member. It was led by an academic manager to try and emphasise this as an academic system. We failed miserably. Everybody rings me up. And we wanted the data to be identified and owned and used by the faculties. And to be fair, it is, in terms of the coding of their staff to activity, is driven through it. And as I say, we do get the deans to sign it off. We also involved the unions early, i.e. they were on the original project team, so that we didn't meet up with any problems later. So they were involved in the initial development. And finance involvement for that README was there to ensure track compliance. So, why are we now looking to review and change our system? That's why we've come and got involved here. That's why we're looking at other options. I think our system became over complex. I think we did, by linking to standard tables, we had to build in a level of complexity that's made the system quite chunky. if that's a technical term, Bill, I don't know, but it's the only one I know. And also, it does look unfriendly when you open it up. There are too many boxes, too many screens to navigate, and therefore maybe it's a little bit over detailed. I think we did make the mistake of micro managing the thing instead of taking a broader view in some things. And we did build in some controls in terms of limiting views and options. So, for example, the academics can only see their own form. The managers can see all the academics linked to them. And if the dean wants to, they can be linked to see all the people under them. So there is a hierarchy, as with the UWE's system. What happened for us, though, when we rolled this system out across the users, we find it didn't fit. When we tried to take it to other faculties, because this was built around a system that was based in our business school, and even though there had been some consultation, what we found when we rolled it out is it hadn't been done effectively, and that actually there were boxes added each time we rolled it out because somebody had a slightly different need, and that hadn't been covered off. And so the system started to grow a little bit, even more complex, which wasn't useful. We also had a problem when it was rolled out. The overall system ownership was not clearly defined, and therefore who was responsible for what parts of the system wasn't clear. And we experienced some problems over who should control the various definitions of allowances, etc. Because there were allowed variances across some of the faculties, and that wasn't really well defined. And the knowledge of the system was in many ways a little bit too centralised. And again, not in all faculties, but in some areas, it lacked local support as a result. They didn't see it fit their needs as well. I have to say, other people loved it. And I guess it's the classic, if we was to define the subject areas that liked it versus the subject areas that didn't like it, we might find a common link, I think, in terms of the HESA code, cost centre code that they fit in. Is discussing that with other people, we found that. So it wasn't, it was a system that worked for certain people, but it worked not so for other people, and I guess that's something we do share with UE on the basis of their thing. I guess the other thing that we had as well was the academics were wary of the use of this information, i.e. the information, was it going to be used to micromanage them? So how it became a recording tool, it wasn't intuitive in terms of allocating the load. The managers didn't have that nice sort of spreadsheet view of staff down one side, load down the other. It wasn't easy to compare who'd got what. So local spreadsheets and fact packets remained in use. System was viewed by some as complex and time consuming. I got phoned up once and said, where do I put the time for filling in this form, John? I won't, my answer was unprintable. Management use of the data available was limited at faculty level. Just want to quickly do this. Academic sign-off process, as I said, we link it to the DPRs. The managers are supposed to discuss and agree this and then sign it off when they do the final appraisal DPR session at the end of the year. And we basically got the system is broken into 3 periods. And when they've reviewed the previous period, they're supposed to agree it with the individual and lock the data down, which is a nice link to that. So each period we have 3 statuses on it. Provisional, which means the manager's put it in, not yet discussed it with the individual. Agreed, he's discussed it with the individual and agreed. Delivered, post-period, they've agreed that that's what the person did, and we lock the data down. And we wanted to do that because, as I said, we use the data to code to nominal. We use it to extract for budget purposes when we're looking at preparing budgets. And once a period is set to delivered, only finance can reopen it for changes. That period. And that's me done, and sessions will be taken later.